Hello, dear learners. Welcome to another learning session on Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. So, Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett is a very renowned work. So, let's get to know a little bit about Samuel Beckett, about his life and work. So, he was born on April 13, 1906, in Ireland. So, he was an Irish dramatist, and his parents were William and Maria. He had a sibling called as Frank, and his education was in Dublin. And also, we see that he graduated from the Trinity College Dublin and Dublin University. His hobbies included cricket. His wife was Georgette, and he died in the year 1989, December 22. So, summary of his works. Best of his works were Waiting for Godot in 1948, Happy Days 1960, and Endgame 1957. So, all his work contributed towards existentialism ideology. So, existentialism is a philosophy, that was put forth in the 20th century, and it was by Jean Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, and Albert Camus. So all of them, put forward this idea, that existential idea, that humans, do not have a choice in their existence. They just have to live. They do not have a way out of this life. So the philosophy was to have an immediate impact on the growth of the theater of the absurd. So their thinking definitely in turn, it did affect the arts, and dramatists were the ones who put their ideas into practice. So the absurd theater, or the theater of the absurd, it was it took its idea from Albert Camus' essay The Myth of Sisyphus in 1942, and it was popularized by the absurdist drama The Theater of the Absurd by Martin Esslin in 1961. So the central ideas are the purposelessness of life, that man's life is purposeless. There's no purpose, or there's no, reason for why we are living. And the theme is the awareness of lack of purpose. There's a state of metaphysical anguish. It also highlights the absurdities or ills of life, that how absurd life is. And their philosophical belief, is summarized in this big quote: our existence is absurd because we are born without asking to be born, we die without seeking death, we live between birth and life, trapped within our body and our reason, unable to conceive of a time in which we were not, or a time in which we will not be. For nothingness is very much like the concept of infinity, something we perceive only in so far as we cannot experience it. So, nothingness, purposelessness, where the highlight, where the high concepts that their dramas, focused on. And the main features of the absurd drama include, they brought about that how life was meaningless, hence it was miserable. Then there was no hope at all. There was, inevitable that man's efforts, everything is going to be futile. So every effort of man is hopeless. And the reality is unbearable. And it can be only, relieved through dreams and illusions. So reality itself is cruel for man. And man is fascinated by the idea of death. In absurd dramas, we find this common fascination for death. And there is also no action. No, nothing at all happens. Very little happens because nothing meaningful can take place. And the final situation is something which is absurd, or sometimes it's even comic. So there's no progress in the plot, also. Few other features of the absurd drama include that there's no purpose, there's no problem is put forward, there's no specific solution also which is given. It's like an abstract painting that you're watching with no meaning at all. And it also highlights the spiritual loneliness, how man, has to face everything alone. God is not there, and there's this complete isolation and anxiety which man has to face, because he's in, especially there are some people who are outcasts, who are, the central characters of these absurd dramas, and they do not have a way out of their miserable life or their miserable existence. So the action and speech are reduced to a minimum, and there's an extensive use of symbols. So some of the exponents of absurd theater were Eugene Inoski, Albert Camus, Harold Pinter, Tom Stoppard, and Samuel Beckett. So let's move into our text, Waiting for Godot. So, Waiting for Godot, the characters are as follows: Estrigan, Vladimir, Pozo, Lucky, a boy, and Godot, the invisible Godot. So, Estrigan is also called as Gogo, Vladimir is also called as Diddy. The play has two acts and it takes place in 2 days. So, who is Godot? So Godot is somebody who Vladimir and Estrogin are waiting. They're waiting in Act 1, they're waiting for him in Act 2. They do not know who he is. All they know is that he's asked them to come over there on this particular place, and they're hoping that the time, they do not know even if the time that they're waiting for him is right, and they never know if he will arrive. They have no surety of who is this Godot. For them, Goro might be a godlike character, somebody who may exist, who may not exist. So there's a lot of just waiting that is happening for this Godo. He's like all pervasive. He's every everywhere. Every part you can find the Goro is there. They are talking about Godo, but we've never seen him. So he just exists throughout the play. Then we also find Vladimir and Estrogin. They are two vagabonds. They are, people who do not have privileges. They are people who live on the streets. They are somebody who, do not have proper food, hunger, somebody who do not have a purpose in their life. So there's meaningless in their existence. They contemplate on death. They talk about vain things which we don't understand at times, but still they have to exist. And they constantly bicker about topics which we don't understand. All of a sudden they're talking about a carrot, they're talking about their shoe, they're talking about a hat. So they are people who do not have any meaning, no purpose in their life. All they're doing is just waiting. And then there are the two characters, Pozo and Lucky. So Pozo and Lucky, they are they show the relationship between the master and the slave. So we find that Pozo, he's a very self-absorbed man. He thinks that he's godlike, and he actually has put a rope around Lucky, and he guides him around like his pet. And we see that Lucky does not talk much. He does not talk at all, and only when the hat of is put on his head does he start thinking. And when he talks with a lot of knowledge, a lot of understanding, which the others lack. But the moment the others see that, they stop him by removing the hat. So here also, the master slave, we see how Pozo does not treat Lucky with any dignity. We find that he suppresses him. He thinks himself to be God and he knows everything. So that's the attitude. So these are the characters. And like I mentioned before, there's an extensive use of symbols in absurd drama. So we'll be discussing some of the symbols that are used recurrently in this play. So some of the symbols that are used are the tree, Lucky's baggage, Poso's rope, nightfall, the name's hat, the boot, the bone. So first, start with the wait at a road. So this road is like the road, that is there in the countryside. They do not know where this road is leading to. They are just, waiting near a road, and in that near the road there's a tree. That's all, and they don't know where they're going. They don't know where the road comes from. It just shows that man's life, and it is a life that it has no foresight. Man just has to continue in whatever road he has to travel. Next is the rope. The rope that ties the slave to its master. It is also the rope where Pozo is healthy and Lucky could think the rope tying the two is too long. So it also can symbolize that the distance between God and man. How there's a distance between the master and the slave. Next, there is some raw vegetables that are introduced. So this actually shows to one point it could stand for the poverty that these people are facing, the struggles that they have to do, and they even have to bicker over eating this raw vegetable. Next is the hat. The hat one, like I mentioned before, Lucky starts speaking when the hat is put on. So it's like sudden thinking or logical thinking. It just when it comes to Vladimir and Estragon, they keep playing around with the hat. There's no meaning in what they do. They just keep exchanging the hat from one to the other, and this just adds humor. So they just have to pass time, and this was just one way of passing their time. Next is the boot. The boot is worn by Estragon, and when he looks into it, he sees nothing. But then he puts it back, and it's like a reality. The boot does has holes, and it shows about the sad plight of these gentlemen who have no place of their own, who do not have anything in their life. Everything they do is pointless, but still they do have to continue surviving. Next is the bone. The bone is given by Pozo to Lucky, and you see that Pozo eats all. When he eats the chicken, he eats all the fleshy part of it, and he gives the bone to Pozo, and Pozo is quite happy to eat it. So this symbolizes poverty. It symbolizes how the powerful, you know, they keep using their power, and they live a lavish life where they keep oppressing and suppressing the deprived. So the bone is a representation of food deprivation. Next is the bag. Lucky carries a bag around. He does not leave it down at all. It's like the baggage that man carries around himself. It's a baggage of so much of hope, so much of so many baggages we keep carrying along. So it symbolizes the worthiness we are trying to prove to our master also. So Lucky carries it, and he's very responsible. So this is similar to how we are trying to prove our worth to God above, but we don't know whether we are succeeding in the process. Next is the tree. The tree symbolizes one. It symbolizes the Christ. No, it symbolizes Christ, the crucifixion. It symbolizes. It gives a Christian imagery to the play, and also it symbolizes that these people, Vladimir and Estrogen, they are dependent on this tree, and those small leaves that sprout from the tree. At first, the tree does not, on the first day, it does not have any leaves or anything. So the leaves that sprout are the hope that these people are waiting for this Goro, the hope that their purpose would be found when they meet Godot. So this is connected with the tree. And then there's endless waiting, which is also used as symbol. So waiting for Godot, it also has some places that are referred, like Macon Country, Gacon Country, Rhone, Eiffel Tower, Pyrenees. So these are some of the places that are referred to in this play. All in all, this play talks about the absurdity of life, how life is purposeless, how there's meaninglessness, and how we are all existing just for the sake of living. So this is a play where nothing happens twice. Two acts, it repeats almost the same story, but nothing ever happens. So I hope all of you understood the points that were discussed in this lesson. So thank you everyone for joining.